Hi guys, my name is Oshun and welcome to my beautiful YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about the stay-at-home girlfriend and wife movement that I see a lot on social media. I recently watched the movie Don't Worry Darling, and yes, this might be full of spoilers, so if you don't want to know, if you haven't seen that movie yet, but it is a movie. I guess it's qualified as science fiction where Harry Styles plays this man who he's not really happy with his life with his girlfriend, and without telling her he puts her in this artificial world, perfect world of 1950s marriage, and the stay-at-home wife and the perfect life in paradise, things like that. But this world isn't all that it's cracked up to be. It's so eerie when it involves a woman having to hand over their autonomy and not having control over their lives. And a lot of people, I find this interesting because a lot of people are always like, I wish we can go back to the 1950s. But in reality, we don't talk enough about the dark side of stay-at-home girlfriends and wives. I'm going to tell my own story as well, and I'm aware that not everyone has a bad story for this. It works out for some people, but the majority of the time I see this huge movement of girls coming out and telling the truth. Even women who get pregnant and they're in their long time marriages and it's just not all it's cracked up to be. And the thing about this, the way that our society is set up, and mind you, this is all my opinions, the way love and dating is set up in our societies is very predatory, meaning that the youthful women are fetishized and put on a pedestal, and the older we get as women, we no longer matter. um, and everything seems to always be catered to centering men. And this is where I feel like cisgender roles come into play a lot, is because everything is centered around patriarchy ideals of success and love. And so inevitably this has women trading on themselves just to be picked and loved. And this is kind of what I got from that movie, Don't Worry Darling. And even the movements today, everyone wants to glamorize the lifestyle of staying at home girlfriend, but they don't want to say the dangers. It's similar because I grew up with the idea, the video vixen area, the sugar baby era, and Disney era, where a man will save you, and that's not the case. And so my personal story of this is, I had my first boyfriend who paid for everything for 2 months. I lived with him, and I thought it was a good gig. Because I wanted to take a break from working, and it was my first time that I ever, not my first time, I'm lying, that I ever gave him over my autonomy. I think I did one other time for like a month when I was younger. I don't know what made me do this, but I think just being young and naive. So this boyfriend was paying for everything for 2 months, but it seemed his whole attitude changed up. Because he felt he was paying for me, he felt he could treat me anyway. And so when you are no longer making your own way, it seems like a lot of these men turn on you, or they want to be able to get away with anything and ignore your humanity. And so that's the really dark side about all of this, is that when you're trading your autonomy, when shit hits the fan, you have nowhere to go, nowhere to be. And the only way that I made it out of this situation, when I was kicked out because I wasn't letting him cheat on me and sleep around and all these things, the only reason that I made it back to the city where I can work again with my personal business of entrepreneurship as a psychic was because ahead of time I asked him for a safety net, like money just in case this shit didn't work out. And the thing about it is, a lot of these guys, they can tend to love bomb you. So I don't necessarily back the whole culture of, if he pays for everything, then he really loves you. Because a lot of these people, they don't see money as anything. So if they're throwing money at you, it doesn't really mean anything. I always say, like, what can you give a man that has everything? And the answer is, you can't give a man that has everything. You can't give him everything because he already has everything. And so, when a lot of times these men are using and abusing women and discarding them because money, we're taught this system of, this is how it goes. But a lot of times these men aim for young women who are naive because they won't fight back or question anything, and that's the eerie part about this as well. And so you see more and more that a lot of older women aren't falling for this like slavery tactics, even marriage tactics to get women enslaved. Um, and what astounds me is that for so long, women have really believed and fallen for this romanticized version of weddings and marriage without understanding they're really just signing up to do chores and things like that. Um, and then ideally, it does seem like a win-win. It's like, oh, I don't have to work. I want to escape capitalism, and that I think that's the biggest trap here, is feeling they have to get you to believe that giving away your autonomy is the best thing that you can do. But once you do that, you're vulnerable. And so something again, I really feel that more women, and I think they are, more women should be speaking up on their personal experiences, the negative sides of it. And again, maybe some people this stuff works out for them, but I think touching on the negative aspects wakes everyone up so they don't fall for these things. And this is a bad thing for men who are narcissistic and they want women who are enslaved and treated badly. And honestly, I get sad when people get mad at me in love readings because if they've seen the disadvantages of men and women in love, they're just never on the same playing field and not in the same mindset. And so, in reality, the work that needs to be done to have a partnership is not being done in the collective. And this is what makes it all sad. um, and and so when people don't realize that, it seems like we almost love the comfort of fairy tales more than the real acknowledgement of everything. And so it sucks. But when I watched the movie Don't Worry Darling, I think I felt like, oh, I'm never getting married, I'm never having kids. And it just confirms for me, like, now I'm 30, I'm getting older. The older I get, the more I'm waking up to a lot of things. And it's not to say that I won't change my mind ever, but this is where I stand now. And it's kind of like similar to when the sugar baby movement came out, people were glamorizing everything, but they weren't talking on the negatives of, like, how people get sucked up into prostitution or sex trafficking, you know, the violence of it and everything. So yeah, that's all I have. I wanted to touch on. Um, to me, I feel the only way that these types of relationships will work out is if you have a safety net. But something that I noticed is that a lot of men or people aren't really dating to marry anymore because there's a lot to lose. And they know that a lot of women are wanting that safety net, and so they rather just not bother. And sometimes even when you get the whole fairy tale safety net thing, it still doesn't work out. And so you always have to keep in mind the possibility of things not working out. And as much as we want to have this idea that things last forever, sometimes they just don't. And yeah, that's just what I want to say. And that movie was just so wild to me. It blew my mind. It made me open myself up to a whole another level of thinking, along with my personal experience. But yeah, I'm curious you guys' thoughts on this. And I don't know, it's a weird generation to be alive in the era of dating apps and having everything you need right at the fingertips. Like, and always people always thinking the grass is greener, changing up partners so constantly. It's a wild generation to witness all of this stuff. Seeing as I feel a lot of societies don't value marriage as heavily anymore. So that's another reason to reconsider all of these, trends that we see happening.